Oh, yes, and I got 3 recipes. Yeah, so.
They're going down.
Yeah, that was so nice.
They're not or they're not doing
I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to say they were both amazing. And lots of love.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you should know. I think I was working at but they're not able to stay. That's what this is. And it's not. They have, let's say they have it. Right. And so, and then I know my sister.
Yes.
Hanging on, not connected, but hanging on. It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, we don't really have
That's what we got.
I'm looking around for one like I want you to Ya da da la 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 la, ya la da da da, ya da da la da na na, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Just want to offer the reminder that if you have a phone that's going to ring, if you could make sure that it's on buzz or whatever that is. I know that Phil has a hard time hearing anyway, but my guess is that now his hearing has returned to him, and it would be difficult. I was loved, therefore I am. I was loved, therefore I am, and in being loved, I am treasured. When I peeled away my layers, and all that was left was my essence, the bareness of me, I was still loved. I was loved, therefore I am. And in being loved, I was able to grow. In my mistakes, held. In my successes, celebrated. I was always loved. I was loved, therefore I am. And in being loved, I learned to love. In the sun-filled day, in the ecstasy of the night, I was loved and loved others. To be loved is all you need. I was loved, and so I will always be. Adonai Madam Vatedaehu Ben Enosh Vatechashvehu Ben Enosh Vatechashvehu Adam Lahevel Dama Yamav Ketzel over Baboker Yatzitz Bechalaf Laerev Yimolel Veyavish Tashev Enosh Adaka Vatomer Shuvu B'nei Adam. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright, for they shall have peace. Death has taken our beloved Phil Levinsky. It's hard to say, even though so many years of his life have passed. Our friends grieved in their darkened world. In their silence, perhaps there is lamentation. In their tears, perhaps loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Phil's love, which united us in life and which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells of our kinship with the Creator in light as in darkness,
in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Psalm 15. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity. Do what is right. Speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue, nor do evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor, nor spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates. Accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then you shall stand firm forever. Ezahu mechubad hamikabed et habriot. Who is honored? One who honors, loves, and cares for other human beings. This is my prayer to you, my God. Let not my spirit wither and shrivel in its thirst for you and lose the dew with which you sprinkled it when I was young. May my heart be open to every broken soul, to orphaned life, to every stumbler wandering unknown and groping in the shadow. Bless my eyes. Purify me to see humanity's beauty rise in the world and the glory of my people in its redeemed land, spreading its fragrance over all the earth. Deepen and broaden my senses to absorb a fresh, green, flowering world, to take from it the secret of blossoming in silence. Grant strength to yield fine fruits, quintessence of my life, steeped in my very being, without expectation of reward. And when my time comes, let me slip into the night, demanding nothing, God, of humanity or of you. There are so many psalms and readings that one could read in Phil's memory, in Phil's honor. And I had a hard time narrowing them down. But here is another one from our philosopher Ben Sira, which says, "Fear not death, for we are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead, hide not your grief, do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. For death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden, nor be preoccupied with what is beyond, for we have been shown more than we can comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good reputation endures forever." Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai rohi lo echzar, bino deshet yarbitzeini, al mei menuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech Begeet Salmavet Lo Irara Ki Ata Imadi Shivtecha Umishantecha Shivtecha Umishantecha Hemayinachamuni Taroch Lefanai Shulchan Taroch Lefanai Shulchan Taroch Lefanai Shulchan Neged Sorerai Dishanta Vashemen Roshi Dishanta Vashemen Roshi Dishanta Vashemen Roshi Kosi Revaya Achtov Vachesed Yirdefuni Kol Yemei Chayai Vishavti Beveit Adonai Vishavti Beveit Adonai Leorech Yamim Yalalai Lai 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 Yalalai Lai 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 Yadadai Lai Nai Dai Dai Yai Nai Dai 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 Yalalai Lai 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 Yadadai Lai 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 Yai Lai Lai Ai Lai Lai. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So, indeed, Phil lives in the house of the Lord forever. He certainly lives in this house, certainly lives in his houses. He lives at Eitz Chaim. He lives all over Portland. And he is absolutely, will always be a part of everything that's here. And also it continues in family. So let me begin by saying that we have all never been this old before. When I would tell my dad that I was preparing for a funeral, he would ask me how old the person was. Anything over, I don't know, about 85, he would say in a sincere tone, well, he was entitled. After a good life, even with its ups and downs, my father felt that we are all entitled to some eternal rest. So as difficult as it is to say goodbye to a young 97-year-old native Portlander, World War II vet, if I was one rank lower, I would have been the enemy, businessman, husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle, great-uncle, great-great-uncle, you name it. As my dad said, he's entitled. There is so much we can say about Phil. How could he tell the same joke over and over again and still make us laugh? And what other synagogue in the world, synagogues all over the place, have the shacharit service, the morning service, the Musaf service, the additional service, but Temple Bethel had Phil's joke section of the service. He packed his tefillin in a Crown Royal bag. He commented on our clothes. He flirted with the women even as Liza rolled her eyes, which she must have done 1,000,000 times over their 72 years of marriage. He had a smile that lit up a room, and he held court, whether he could hear you or not. After Minyan, one could often hear him playing the piano, and I couldn't remember the joke about piano lessons. Something about his parents not paying for them or paying for them, whatever it was. Oh, that's it. They're still... See, we still laugh. There was a time when the B'nai Mitzvah kids would attend morning minyan. He would engage them and tease them and make them laugh. One student told me that being with Phil was what made him feel Jewish. That Phil was the epitome of Jewish, full of stories and jokes and Yiddish and davening. Phil was like Jewish comfort food, and when he was on, everything felt right. I had the opportunity to be with him one last time, the day before he died. I sang to him, I prayed with him, I thanked him for all he had done for the city of Portland, for the Jews of Portland and beyond, for Eitz Chaim and Temple Bethel, for his beloved family and for his friends. I forgave him for calling me Rabbi Sky 1,000,000 times. And I chanted Shema and V'ahavta with him as his breathing fell into the rhythm of the Hebrew. Finally, I played Al Jolson, and it came up singing Tut Tut Tootsie Goodbye, and we held hands in silence. Even though he couldn't communicate with words, his very Phil presence was strongly felt. It is a presence that will always be here, in this building, at Eitz Chaim, on Munjoy Hill, and in all the establishments he visited. There is no doubt in my mind that Phil is in Olam Haba with Elizabeth, his family, his friends, his beloved dogs, telling the same jokes and eliciting the same responses and bringing great joy to all the residents. Phil and Elizabeth were an institution. How fortunate they felt to have such a devoted family and friends who walked beside them and know that they will carry on after them. Yes, he was entitled, but we're still entitled to miss them. May the memory of Feivel Hirsch ben Yaakov Nissen Vagoldi be for a blessing. So I wish I had the floor for another 4 hours, but other people would like to speak too. And I'd like to invite his beloved sister, Aunt Faye, forward.
morning. It's an honor to share some vignettes of Phil's and my life growing up at 118 Dartmouth Street. Fall, 1938. I'm 6 years old. Phil is almost 12. He's sitting at the kitchen table with a jar of our Mother Goldie's home-baked soft chocolate cookies and a quart of milk on the kitchen table. Usually, he has a smile for me and invites me to join him. But that day, I'm holding a bloated paper bag in my fist. As soon as he saw the bag, he said, "Faye, what have you got there?" I was caught. Impulsively before school, I had stopped at the corner candy store and spent my 25-cent milk money on a bag of penny candy. He was stern. "You're in big trouble. Wait until Mom finds out." I remember his disapproval. I was scared. It was the first and last time I did anything like that. Spring, 1942. I organized a group of pals for an elementary talent show to donate to the Red Cross war effort. 10 of us are lined up like soldiers in front of the garage at the back of our house. I'm facing the chorus line as we rehearse and sing, "This is the Army, Mr. Jones. No private rooms or telephones." I hear a back bed window open. Phil sticks his head out, shouts, "Faggy, it's a march. Line them up 2 by 2. That's right. Stand tall, rifle on the right shoulder. Now march, 1, 2, 1, 2. His voice is strong and definite. We were a hit at the event. Summer, 1942. We're on an outing at Big Sebago Lake. I've swum out to the dock. I can see Phil a little nearer shore, not too far from others laughing and fooling around. All of a sudden, he starts to thrash, his head bobbing up and down, gasping. I dive in and head right for him. He sees me, yells, "I'm drowning." I instinctively put my feet down to test the depth, and my legs hit hard on sandy floor below. "Phil," I yell, "stand up and put your feet down. It's shallow." The water came to his upper chest. "You saved me," he said. I laughed and continued to laugh every time he told the story with more and more embellishment of how I saved him. Early 1945. I come down with a really bad case of chickenpox. Our mom isolates me in the twin bedroom. Days later, Phil, drafted and a week away from reporting for duty, lands in the empty bed next to me. He is covered with the pox. He and I suffered the torture of itching for days. We chat and we chat. Read comics galore. Phil had every single comic book there was. Listen to the radio. The good news was that he got to stay home from joining the Army for a full month extra, making our Mother Goldie very happy. When I graduated high school, it was my big brother who gifted me a wonderful portable typewriter and a case. I used it all through college and grad school for term papers, notes on my social work interviews, and years after until my first computer. Summer, 1951. Liza and I become friendly at Center Day Camp, and one day I mention how much I like her and wonder aloud to Phil if she and he might hit it off. He had many girlfriends, but so far, none had stuck. I was happy every time Phil gave me credit for that shidduch. January 1952. It was my big brother Phil who woke me out of a sound sleep at 6 a.m. on an icy, snowy morning at Simmons College with the news that our brain-damaged little brother, Royal, quote, "Royal died in the night. Get to the train. Come home immediately. The funeral is tomorrow." Shortly after, I met Marv, my future husband, and introduced him to Phil. He was not happy that I fell in love with a man from Detroit, married and left Portland to graduate for graduate school in Michigan. Not so long ago, at one of our major anniversary events, he made a toast to Marv, saying what a good husband he had been to me all these years. He said, "I forgive you for taking my sister away." A long time coming, but so honest and heartfelt. It was a wonderful moment. Now, on this day of days, June 8th, 2024, I again say goodbye. I shall miss Phil's questions about my life, about my kids, his affable jokes, the hard candies pulled out of his pocket, the combs, one of which I still use, but mostly the love in his voice when I called or visited. "It's my sister. You're so beautiful." And then, even in these last years, "You were such a beautiful baby." Thank you.
So Phil also had disciples, and one of his disciples took over the head of the Brotherhood, whom I always call the Brothers of the Hood. I'm not exactly sure what their role was other than being president of the Brotherhood. And so I'd like to invite Robert Levine forward to share some thoughts. If you want, you could go to the tall person's side. Either one.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here today and to be asked to speak about my dear friend Phil Levinsky. He used to say the first 100 years are the hardest. He said, "You find very few people who die after the age of 100. So, and his jokes, they were like a melody. They filled up the room. You could hear them after you left, like his piano playing. And I remember three things about Phil, three characteristics I'd like to share. One was his generosity of spirit. I remember, and you said that I was president of Brotherhood, which really was a ceremonial title, and mostly I just got up and gave the announcements at the end and introduced Phil to give a joke, and that was essentially my role. But we used to have breakfasts here, and Sunday breakfasts were always a celebration, and Sam Silverman used to make his matzah brie, and Phil Levinsky would make his baked apples. And he'd bring the baked apples in a glass tray, and they were so delicious. They were like Phil. They were soft and mushy and sweet, and everyone loved the baked apples. Now, we had a guy named Hy Nevins, who was the guy who showed up early in the morning to open the door. He didn't sleep much at night. He slept in a chair, and the Minion was his life, essentially. So he'd be the first one here at like 6 a.m. He'd open the door. He was a little bit cranky, but it became his life for years to show up at the Minion. And later in life, in his 80s, he started to get sick, and he wasn't able to show up anymore, and he was in the hospital one Sunday morning when we had a breakfast. So after breakfast, Phil and I went to the Barron Center to visit Hy Nevins, and Phil brought his glass dish of baked apples. And at that point, Hy he had dentures, so his dentures are out. He couldn't really chew on anything. And I still remember to this day, Phil spooning the baked apples into his mouth so Hy could enjoy them. And I saw the look on Hy's face, and it was just a look of, love, that he was loved, and that he really appreciated, the outpouring of love. Even though he wasn't there, we appreciated him, and Phil made a point of showing Hy in person and in just this gesture how much he was loved. And I'll never, ever forget his generosity of spirit. The other thing I would say about Phil is his hard work. It kind of goes unnoticed because his personality was such that he was always, causing people to laugh, always telling jokes. But this man built a business empire. And his father was a peddler. And he used to tell me this story about this train car of surplus Army candles. And His father got them really cheap because no one wanted any Army candles. And then one day, Portland had a power outage, and power was out for like 7 days. So his father made a killing on those candles. And Phil built a huge business and spent a lot of money on advertising, but it all paid off. And he used to joke, I'd give $1,000 to be a millionaire. And after his business went bankrupt, he'd pause a beat and then say, again. And he just had this most wonderful sense of humor, and that, I think, was his saving grace. You talk about the joke that he told about if he was one rank lower, he'd be the enemy. I remember he used to tell me the story about suing Walmart. They won a big verdict in federal court, and I said, Phil, what did you say to the jury? And he said, I told them that joke about if I was one rank lower, I'd have been the enemy. And he clearly charmed them. But that was his life. He had this charm, and he had this melody, and he had this music, and he could play piano by ear. And all of his jokes, most of his jokes, were all self-effacing. He'd say, you know, my parents paid this piano teacher, and they're still looking for him. But you know, he'd get on the piano and he'd play this dance song, and I can't remember what it was, but it was from like the 1940s, and what was it called? I'm in the mood for love. And at the end, he'd say, Mama needs a new pair of shoes. And I thought of him today as his melody filled the room, and I thought, these are very big shoes to fill, and we'll never fill Phil's shoes. So thank you all for coming, and to Phil.
And I'd like to invite his granddaughter, Andrea, forward.
My grandfather was a true mensch, a person of great character, integrity, and honor. While he may be known for his many famous sayings, jokes, and jovial nature, his impact on his community was far greater than this. While I'm too young to have many memories of Levinsky's in the good old days, I constantly am asked about Zadie when people learn my last name and have been able to piece together parts of people's stories. One strong memory I have of him is going with him to the Italian festival in Portland each summer. I was impressed by how excited people were to see him. It was like he was a celebrity. When my grandparents owned property, they rented to many people in this community. Likely over 25 years later, he still remembered many people's names and things about them, and they treated him like an old friend. When you are a landlord or a property manager, you work with people when they are vulnerable to provide them an essential service for their life. While I was not alive or very young when this was happening, the impact Zadie had on this community was abundantly clear. I also met many people who worked for Zadie, often people who worked at Levinsky's for their first job. They have many fond memories of Zadie and a very positive outlook on their experience. As someone who works with students getting their first job, I know how challenging it can be to work with people new to the workforce, and to have them commenting on this experience with Zadie decades later must have had a profound impact on them. I've never talked directly with him about what he did or how he did it, so I welcome these stories from those who were there. One thing I did experience firsthand was Zadie's steadfast commitment to brotherhood, as we just heard about. Zadie was instrumental in making sure that people had a place to say Kaddish, and I'm so grateful to Tom Berman, Robert Levine, and many others who carry on this legacy and continue to have Zadie feel part of the community even when he could no longer attend services. Both my brother and I were blessed to attend Minion Weekly with Zadie when we were in high school, which was always followed by a stop at Big Sky Bakery and then Zadie bringing us to school. Zadie led services with ease and experience in addition to a deep spirituality and connection to God. I am felt especially moved at how he led the Mishaberach prayer, the prayer for healing with such spirituality. I also experienced the spirituality when I go over to say Kaddish for Bubby in these past 6 months. Personally, Zadie was one of my biggest cheerleaders. He and Bubby attended every performance at school or in-school event I had with gusto. He was known to my friends as the Hooray Man, as he would shout hooray at the end of the performance right before the clapping got too loud so we could hear him. In fact, when I told Zadie I am currently in a musical, he said he wanted to go. Zadie was extremely proud of my work as an educator, and especially how I work with students with barriers to success. Some of my students even became his caregivers. Zadie cared deeply about all the people of Portland and beyond, and was a true community servant. How lucky are we all to be able to carry out his legacy and feel connected to each other in part because of him.
You know, I was just thinking another form of generosity was that at Morning Minion, he'd also announce what was on sale at which store. I remember bananas, but I think I might have also remembered crab or lobster or something like that, but I'm not sure. But he always wanted everyone to get the deal. I'd like to invite Ken forward.
This is good.
And there's more water down here.
Thank you.
Want that. There you go.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank you all for coming here. As I had a chance to greet a lot of you, there was a lot of love, and I know my father would love to be here and love to hear about how you're all doing. And I want to thank the rabbi for getting things together so quickly and her always spot-on eulogy. And I want to thank my Aunt Faye for coming up on short notice and, you know, telling things that fill in the gaps for me. And I want to thank Robert. Where are you, Robert? Thank you, Robert. I think everyone can understand the type of relationship you had with my father, and that you carry it forward in your own way. And my daughter Andrea, who spoke so beautifully and put things into terms that relate to the work that she does. And of course, I have to mention my son and wife Nancy, who were so supportive of my father right up until the very end, all the time, consistent. So anyway, there are 3 Levinsky boys, and we were wild. Amy, where are you? Amy Brenner. So my father was not a sports fan, and he had us. He had us that day. It was in 1967, I think January or something like that. And he said, let's go over to Buddy's house, because it was always fun at Buddy's house, and Buddy had a lot of stories. So we pull in, we open the door, and Buddy says, Phil, get the heck out of here. And my father said, what's going on, Buddy? He says, it's the Super Bowl. It's the first Super Bowl. And he was dying to watch it, because my father had no idea, what the Super Bowl was. So that was the one time that he got booted out of there. I'd like to read something from my brother Bruce, who is in Florida. I am unable to attend today's Temple Bethel funeral for my father, Philip, because Helene and I care for our little Anthony. He has leukodystrophy and casque diseases, which require eyes on him 24/7. And he is a beautiful, beautiful boy, and a very happy boy. Just a pleasure. They sent out videos, and it's just a pleasure to see him and how much fun he has. Anyway, it's been difficult to put into words how important my father Philip has been in all our lives. He was my rock, my friend, my amazing person from whom I found comfort and lots of love. He will be greatly missed for his ability to connect with people he met, even briefly. He had a friendly nature, a fondness for music, adorable jokes that were often passed on to families as theirs. Here are a few of Bruce's favorites. I'm so glad you saw me. come back and see us, as he handed the customer or friend a comb with the Levinsky label on it. So many sweet moments to remember about sharing time with him, and we will all miss your smile and your kind-hearted soul, irreplaceable. Bruce says, I'd like to honor my brothers and their wives and children, and my Florida families too, for sharing the great responsibilities to offer care to both of my parents. They all contributed time and love to ensure for Elizabeth and Philip had a good quality of life. I thank my family and friends for their comforting words of praises toward my father and mother. May their life be a beacon of hope for our own families. That's from my brother Bruce. And this is from his daughter Denise, who is his oldest, and she was the oldest grandchild. To my dear Papa, says Denise, and hello, Denise. I'm sure you're watching this, and Bruce and Helene and all kinds of relatives and friends out there. To my dear Papa, you are such an amazing grandfather to us. I have so many wonderful memories over the years. Some of my favorite memories are our weekly trip to the Full Belly Deli. Seeing you play tennis in the morning when I would walk to school. And speaking of tennis, my father played on his 80th birthday with Gregory. He loved the game of tennis. And the interesting thing about my father in tennis is that he'd rather have a good point than win it. He said he loved a good rally. That was the most fun for him, and instead of winning the point. And that really is his life. That was his life. He wanted to have a good rally, a good rally, a good interaction. And it didn't matter who won or lost. It was just being there and enjoying the time. Denise goes on, hearing your new jokes and all of our lovely conversations. I miss you and I love you. Love, Denise and family. And then I have one more to pull up from Isaac. Let's see. Here. Sorry for the delay. Here we go, maybe. Let's see here. Let's see. Here, I think we might be. Yeah. Okay. Isaac, the second oldest grandchild and the oldest grandson, who is doing a wonderful job with his wife Terry, caring for their son Anthony. Papa, you taught me so many things about life that I don't know where to begin. Everyone else called you Zadie, but Denise and I, being your first grandchildren, we first learned to say Papa as little kids, and that name stuck for us. Papa, I loved every minute with you, and you are greatly missed. Your words are still with me, and your sayings were the best. I love the way you told stories and jokes. You had the best timing and facial expressions, and you would always look at me with loving eyes each time I laughed at your jokes and say, "You're my biggest fan." I'm happy you got to meet Terry and Anthony, and I want you to know we all love you and miss you so much. That's from Isaac. Then I just had hopefully a couple of quick vignettes, like Aunt Faye. And by the way, I'm sure you know that my parents were married here in 1951. When my father was a young kid living at 118 Dartmouth Street, he used to walk by this plot of land. There were clay tennis courts across the street, and this is even before the temple was built. And then, there were bar mitzvahs here, and wonderful times with friends. I had a lot of friends who went to Temple Beth El with me, and their parents and my parents were so close. And everyone's bar bat mitzvah was celebrated as a community time. As the rabbi said, this is really full of those memories. Anyway, I'll just tell one. When I was young, I started to become interested in sports. I lived across the street from the Marshalls, and the Marshalls loved sports. In fact, Johnny Marshall, who was my best friend when I was a little boy, eventually his daughter married Matt Ryan, who was an NFL quarterback. So that's how much the Marshalls love sports. Anyway, the Marshalls loved the Red Sox, and I didn't know if I should love the Red Sox or not. So I asked my father, I said, this is 1960. I said to my dad, because I wanted to know, Dad, what's your favorite baseball team? And he didn't know much about sports, but he knew about the Yankees. He says, I like the Yankees. So once my father said that, I was a huge Yankee fan. And that fall, they played the Pittsburgh Pirates in the World Series in 1960. And it was tied up 3 games apiece. And Bill Mazeroski hit a home run to beat the Yankees in Game 7. And I felt so bad for the Yankees, because I really didn't know there's history, and I thought the Yankees were underdogs. So the next year, when they won 109 games and Maris and Mantle hit all those home runs, it was so exciting for me. And I remained a Yankee fan for about 25 years. And what I want to say also how my father connects to this is these sports players became my heroes, especially Mickey Mantle was my hero. And I wanted nothing more than to see Mickey Mantle in person. In fact, Gregory, for my last birthday, got me a Mickey Mantle, was it a photo or some sort of special memento? So anyway, I told my dad that I wanted to see the Yankees and Mickey Mantle. And, he didn't even know who Mickey Mantle was, but he wanted to please me. If I wanted to do it, he wanted to do it. And so I arranged for the tickets, and Bruce and I and my dad went down and saw the Yankees. My dad, had a good time. He loved everything. And, he had a great time. And then a couple years later, I wanted to see Wilt Chamberlain. He was a giant. He was my hero. And my dad had heard of Wilt Chamberlain, and again, he brought us down. He had a great time, and this just continued forever and ever. When I was an adult and they were living in Florida, I said, Dad, there's a hockey game. The Florida Panthers, who are now in the Stanley Cup Final, were playing an exhibition game in January because it was a strike-shortened season. I said, Dad, let's go see the Florida Panthers. He said, sure, he said, and he enjoyed it. So again, with my father, it wasn't about wins and losses. It was about the rally. And, he just enjoyed everything and everyone, and he took pleasure in being part of it. So again, thank you so much for being here. And just so you'll know, following burial at Temple Bethel Memorial Cemetery, we're going to gather here, have a little something to eat, and visit. So whether you join us at the cemetery or not, please come back and spend a little time with us. There's way more stories to tell. Every one of you, looking at Cousin Beth, has plenty of stories to tell. So thank you again, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Probably should conclude this section with and many happy returns. There's a poem I would like to end this section with that was written by Harold Schulweis, and it's about Kriya. It's tearing that ribbon or tearing the cloth, tearing your clothes when you hear about the death of a loved one. Why rend the clothes, so strange to a tradition that admonishes not to break or to destroy? It is for the sake of anger against the unfairness of the world, anger against him or her, God or self? Is tearing the cloth to give outer expression to the tattered soul within? Or is it a parallelism? The death of a person is like the burning of a Sefer Torah, for which tearing the clothes is performed. The burial of a human like the burial of a Torah, a human being is like a Sefer Torah. Studied, it has wisdom to impart. Lived, it has goodness to convey. Rend the garments for the Torah mensch. Each of us is a letter in the Torah scroll. Together our lives are intertwined. Our common fate and faith, our common destiny, find us like the stitches of the parchment. When any of us is lost, the holy text is torn. In memory, we are mended. So as to Ken, you are welcome. I think I said to to Bruce, we would do anything for you guys, and feel proud and honored that we can. And I know that Phil's stories and jokes and his whole presence, it still felt, even though he could not be part of the in-person services, which he had been to, I don't know for how many years. When I came, he was there, and with Hai, those guys. So, I think that Phil Levinsky probably went to temple more than Rabbi Braun, when you get right down to it. I never knew why he didn't come here on Saturday mornings, but I think it might be the Kiddush and the friendship over there at Eitz Chaim. I've heard it's one of the best Kiddushes. We aspire to it. But as Ken said, following this service, we will gather at the Temple Bethel Memorial Park, where Phil has kindly made it stop raining. And you're all welcome to that. And then to come back and do really what Phil and Elizabeth, what the Levinskys would all want us to do, which is come back and eat and celebrate life. And maybe one of you knows how to play piano. Maybe there is somebody. But this is a happy, sad day. And I'm so glad all of you could be here. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, 1,000 years in your sight are as a passing day, an hour of night. The generations come and go while you endure forever. We are always in your hand, Adonai, in death as in life. Help us mourn the loss of Feivel Hirsch ben Yaakov Nissen Vagoldi, Philip Harold Levinsky, to look beyond this moment, to realize that death cannot destroy the bonds of your everlasting love. Sustain us with the knowledge afforded by faith that you will not allow us to suffer oblivion. For you, Eternal One, have taught us the way of life, and through you we gain eternity. And let us say, Amen. I invite you to rise for the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, B'mahalot Kedoshim Utorim, K'zohar Akia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Feivel Hirsch ben Yaakov Nissen Vagoldi, Shehalach Lolamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Ana Ba'al Rachamim, Hastirehu B'seter Knafecha Lolamim, Utzror B'tzror HaChayim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachala v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Philip Harold Levinsky, Feivel Hersh ben Yaakov Nissen Vigoldi, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that Phil find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.